And thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for joining us once again across the Louisiana plain, where we are elevating the cause of constitutional conservatism in Louisiana, elevating the cause of constitutional conservative citizens across the state, and rapidly now draining the Louisiana swamp. My name is Chris.
And I'm Danielle, and this is the State of Freedom, brought to you by freedom-loving Louisiana First Patriots. Hello, State of Freedom warriors. Thank you for inviting us to be part of your day. We are so grateful for you. You're the best listening family anyone could possibly hope for, and we are only here because of your encouragement, your prayers, and your financial support. If you are looking for a way to support us, to advertise with us, or to send us feedback, please visit our website at freedomstate.us. We'd really appreciate it if you'd also help us get the word out and spread the reach of the State of Freedom. Please like the show on whatever platform you listen to us, subscribe to it, and share it. You can share short clips instead of the full episodes from our YouTube and Rumble channels, and links to those are always in the show notes and over on freedomstate.us. Moms for Liberty East Baton Rouge Parish Chapter is dedicated to fighting for the survival of America by unifying, educating, and empowering parents to defend and take back their parental rights at all levels of government. To learn more or to get involved with Moms for Liberty East Baton Rouge, email momsforlibertybatonrouge@gmail.com. That's moms, the number 4, Liberty Baton Rouge @gmail.com. The email address is on the Patriot page of our website, freedomstate.us, and it's in the show notes. Joining us today is someone you'll recognize from the White House briefing room. He provided a lot of us with great entertainment when he sparred with current White House Press Secretary Karine Jean-Pierre, and he never backed down. We're so delighted to have Simon Ateba of Today News Africa with us today. Before we talk to Simon, let me read the scripture of the day. It's 1 Thessalonians chapter 2, verse 12, and it says, "We comforted and encouraged you and challenged you to adopt a lifestyle worthy of God, who invites you into his kingdom and glory." In this passage, Paul is writing to the church at Thessalonica, and he's commending them for heeding his previous instruction to adopt a lifestyle worthy of God. Well, what does it mean to adopt a lifestyle worthy of God, who invites us into his kingdom and glory? It means to live honestly and purely before him. It means making our yes mean yes and our no mean no. It means being quick to apologize for hurting or offending someone else and being quick to forgive those who do those things to us. It means having a life that produces the fruit of the Spirit: love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, gentleness, faithfulness, and self-control. It means telling the truth when it's uncomfortable. And really, simply, when we boil it all down, it means that our actions reveal that we honor and fear the Lord instead of fearing or bowing to what we think people want to hear or what is popular in public opinion.
You know, Danielle, that's so very true. It means to try to live in truth, no matter what other people may think or what other people may feel. To be dedicated to the truth, to speak the truth, and to live in truth. Our guest today, from what I've been able to read about him, even though I have not met Simon Ateba personally, from what I've read about him, is always seeking the truth and always challenging those to defend their position and to justify what they say. Formerly a member of the White House Press Corps. Simon, what a pleasure to have you with us on the State of Freedom today. How are you?
Great, doing great. Thank you, Chris. Thank you, Danielle, for having me. I'm so glad to be here.
It's our pleasure.
Absolutely. Simon, one of the things that intrigued me about you is that apparently you're so dedicated to seeking the truth that you routinely challenged Karine Jean-Pierre, the White House press secretary, to the point where you were actually kicked out of the press briefing room. I'd like to hear about that story. What happened and what caused you to be removed?
Yes, Chris, I think because I was a bit naive, when I got to the White House, the Biden White House, I used to be there briefly in and out when President Trump was in power. But when Biden came to power and he said that he loved Black people, he was the guy who loved everybody, was going to restore the international relation and diplomacy, and he had so many promises. And so when I got to the White House briefing room and I joined the White House Correspondents Association, I thought people who were there to seek the truth. I thought we were there to ask questions that really that were in the interest of the American people and the American allies, including those in Africa. I was then disappointed that it was like a club where people don't really seek the truth. They send their questions in advance, and the press briefing ended up being a show that wasn't really based on any truth. And so when I got to the White House and I began to ask all those key or tough questions, I began to feel opposition, including from journalists in the room. And so eventually they had to change the entire rules last year, and they deactivated my White House press pass. And so now I can't go to the White House anymore. I can apply 2-day passes, but it means I have to apply every single day, and I have to apply before 5 p.m. And when I apply, they need to approve it. And also when I go to the White House, usually they keep me at the gate for sometimes more than an hour. They will watch me from inside, from their cameras, and when they're, if they want, they can come outside to pick me. So I learned, that's why I like the scripture that Danielle read a few moments ago. It's so hard to tell the truth. And it's not just on one side, it's not just on the left, it's also on the right. And it's not just at the White House, it's also on the internet. When you speak the truth, people actually unfollow you online. When you tell them, hey, the polls are not really going good now. They might be okay in 2 weeks, in 3 weeks, but now this is where the situation stands. People really get upset and they begin to unfollow you. At the White House, they kick you out. On social media, they block you and they unfollow you. The level of intolerance is unbelievable. People, all of us believe that everyone should see the world the way we see it, and things should be the way we think that they are. And so when we realize that things are different, people really come after you, and that's what happened.
It sounds, Simon, like you are always challenging your own preconceived notions about things, and we should all be constantly examining our own ideas, our own beliefs. Socrates said that the unexamined life, the unexamined heart are not worth anything. We have to constantly be examining our own motives, our own preconceived ideas. But you have quite a following, Simon, on social media, from what I understand, from what I've seen. Let me ask you this: are you the only journalist who was kicked out of the White House press corps, or were there others who were similarly exiled?
So I was actually the only one who used to be at the White House regularly. And so what they did was they changed the rule. They added a new requirement. They said that for me to cover the White House, I needed to be credentialed by the Supreme Court of the Senate. And I don't cover the Supreme Court, and I don't cover the Senate. And the Supreme Court doesn't grant credentials for people who don't go to the Supreme Court daily. They have actually just 25 media houses. And so that's how they were able to make it impossible for me to renew my hard pass. And in doing that, a lot of people were affected. But those were the people who had a hard pass, but who were not really going to the White House. They've not gone for years. So like 300 or 400 people were affected, but most of them were not there. I was the only one who was at the press briefing every single day, trying to ask questions and challenging her on the discrimination against me, and also challenging her on the things that they were saying. One of the reasons I became their enemy was because I challenged them on the COVID crisis. If you remember, in 2021, South Africa was able to identify the Omicron variant and informed the WHO, and the WHO informed the US that was a new variant of COVID-19 in 2021. And how did the Biden administration react? They reacted by banning 8 African nations. 6 of them had 0 cases of the variant. At the same time, there were cases in the UK, in Hong Kong, in Asia, everywhere. And so I began to challenge them that why do you ban countries that have zero cases and you have cases in the UK and Asia? And they didn't like that. And so that's when our conflict began, by just simply asking them those questions.
Well, and it sounds like their new rules, quote unquote rules, were really meant to hurt the independent journalists and to hurt the small outlets, not the ones that are in lockstep with the talking points that the White House wants to put out, that they want to have repeated on, on the big news outlets.
Yes, exactly. And, they are one. All of them, they are just one. Fox News, CNN, MSNBC, all of them, they actually won. When you watch the press briefing, it seems like they are different, but they actually won. When you get to the White House, you want to belong, you want to fit into a group. You don't want to rock the boat. You want to ask the question that they want you to ask. Usually you send your questions in advance because the White House will reach out to you and ask you if you have a topic to discuss today. They don't want to say questions because they don't want to say that you are sending your questions in advance. So you tell them, hey, I would like to discuss Ukraine and the funding in Ukraine, how many billions you've sent there. And so KJP takes the questions, and when it's time for press briefing, she calls on you and you ask her about Ukraine, and she reads the answer that she already had on Ukraine. So it's everything staged. It's not a serious press briefing where people really give you answer. And when you get to the White House and you begin to do your job and you begin to ask them those questions, what you realize is you begin to face opposition from your colleagues in the briefing room. You begin to face opposition from the White House Correspondent Association. Did not renew my credential. Also, they said I didn't have enough money, that I wasn't making enough money. A lot of those people who said I have been fired, a lot of them, NPR, for instance, the person who was the president then, she worked for NPR. They had to fire many people. And that's why I like the Bible, because all you need to do is to look at the life of Jesus Christ. He wasn't the son of a king. He was the son of a carpenter. So people, they wanted to judge me not based on the work that I was doing. They wanted to judge me, how much money do you make? And why do you ask those questions? We don't like those questions. Why do you need to, and that's why the White House Correspondent Association kicked me out. And then the White House deactivated my hard pass. And I went to court, and we are going to have a ruling on appeal. My ruling is on appeal, and we'll get a ruling maybe in the next 2 or 3 weeks.
Oh, wow. Well, we'll have to get you back on so we can hear how that turns out. But I really believe that this whole White House Correspondents Association, the White House Press Pool, sounds like it needs a good house cleaning, because look, iron sharpens iron. And if there were people in there with integrity, then they would be jockeying for the hardest question, not for the easiest question, not to be, getting prime seating in the front. They would be jockeying to be known as the person who really put the screws to the administration to find out the truth on behalf of the people.
Yes, and that's why if you see President Biden, when he had the debate with President Trump, and people were shocked, oh my God, he's suffering from this, he can't even speak, but the people at the White House, they've known those things for 3.5 years. They knew the man could not function. They knew the man didn't have the mental ability to really do his job. He's a good man. Like, he's not a bad person when you meet him. He's not going to shoot. He's not going to shoot you. But, he didn't just, he doesn't have, he's not the same person he was 10, 20 years ago. So he's going to be the first president who has not come to the White House press briefing even once in 4 years.
Wow.
You know where you used to see President Trump during
every
COVID,
every day.
And it's true that I must say that President Trump also wasn't coming a lot until COVID, and then he realized, oh my God, this is a good thing, and then he began to do it every
Yeah. Yeah.
day. And
All the
he also
time.
realized millions of people were watching it, and so that's he's not going to come to the White House briefing room as president. The first in, I don't know, you've seen President Obama there, you've seen President Bush there, you've seen President Trump there, you've seen almost all the president before him came to the White House briefing room, and the reason he didn't come was because they didn't want him to have unscripted questions. Because when you come to the White House briefing room, you just, you call on people you don't know. You don't have a list of people to call on. He didn't want that. He wanted to have 3 or 4 questions, and he wanted to know exactly who we ask those questions, what they are going to ask him, and the White House Correspondent Association, the White House press pool, they covered for him, and they knew he wasn't functional. They knew he couldn't do his job, but they kept covering for him. And people like me who tried to do their job and ask questions, they kicked me out, and then they don't just kick you out. They also go to Wikipedia. They try to write all kinds of stuff about you. They call their friends on the Daily Beast and Politico, and the New York Times came to my house where I'm speaking to you now. They came to my house to spend the whole day with me. The Washington Post did a very bad story on me. They try to destroy you. That's what they do here in DC, and no one wants to go through that. And they want to fit into the group. They want to be invited to events and go to social events, go to parties. And if you become controversial, you won't be invited for such
So,
things.
Simon, the purpose of the Fourth Estate, the purpose of the media, is traditionally to seek the truth, to hold the government and government officials accountable to the people. Yet it seems as though, as you're describing it, the enemy is now the truth. And the Fourth Estate, it seems like it is actually complicit in the effort by the government to conceal the truth. And if you pursue the truth with courage, then you become the enemy. Is that fair?
Yes, you become the target. You can see that with Julian Assange.
Yeah. Or is there any, Simon, is there anybody there? Is it a pure charade now, the White House press corps? Is there anybody there you can name who asks tough questions, or is it really just a meaningless formality at this point?
No, I can't name anybody, because even though on the surface it looks like tough questions, it becomes drama. It's just drama. It's nothing serious about crime and investigations and injustices and discrimination, and is no more those things. It's about the whole drama on president. You see some of those drama on some right wing network, but I can't really name anybody. And I know that because I know all of them. I know how they behave. I know how, because it's also difficult. You travel on Air Force One with the president. If you become too controversial, you will make people uncomfortable. Your children go to the same school with the people you are supposed to hold accountable. If you become controversial, then it becomes a problem. You live in the same neighborhood. You have so much money. They have so much money. They don't represent the people. They are now comfortable. They are now part of the system against the people. That's what they do there. They are now part of the system against the people, and the truth is now the enemy. And anyone who pursues the truth is now a target, and they try to do everything to destroy you.
And you can almost just look at the people whose lives have basically been upended, and you can tell, okay, well, we know that they're the good guys, and the people who continue to skate by in positions of power with no questions asked, something must be fishy with them.
Yes, when you are part of the system, usually we have these background calls where the White House wants to drop information in the media. Everything is false. They won't tell you, for instance, that Russia just bombed their own pipeline, and it's all false. It's, pardon my French, complete BS. They know it's false. The journalists know it's false. And so they have a background call because they don't want to come to the White House briefing room and stand behind the lectern and say those things. But they won't drop it there. They drop that we believe that Russia did it, but we don't have any confirmation. And CNN goes out, New York Times, they say U.S. official believe that Russia did it, and it's all false. And then 2 months or 3 or 4 months after, we realized that it was all false. And it's a shame what's going on.
It is. I'm excited to share a fantastic opportunity for State of Freedom listeners who are interested in investing in precious metals or even starting a home-based business in the precious metals industry. Metal Stacks is a precious metals collectors club where you can buy your metals at the best prices on the market, actual dealer cost. They are beating the big sites. They have no credit card fees and no minimums. If you're just interested in purchasing metals at a great price, visit metalstacks.com/dwalker. Get to shopping, that helps me out. I get the commission. You can also refer people to Metal Stacks for an additional income. If you're interested in learning about the referral business aspect of Metal Stacks, email me directly at Danielle@freedomstate.us for more information. Simon, you touched on what this has meant for you personally. What has it meant for your business, for your news agency?
Yeah, so you need to be there. You need to have access to those places. And if you don't have access, it cripples you. They try to kill your business. They try to also kill you as a person, not physically, but they try to kill your job. They try to kill the spirit in you. And so it's been really hard for me not to go to the White House, not be able to ask the questions there. It's been tough for me, but I also saw it online. When I left the White House, and I began to grow my followers on social media, especially on Twitter or X, and I began to realize that the people who really liked me, people who followed me, and were like, "We want the truth. You need to tell us the truth." And so when you tell them the truth, you realize that even those people don't actually want the truth.
Well, Simon,
they want the controversy, but not the
truth.
They
want the controversy. and to that point that you just made, Simon, you have been publishing polls on the presidential race, some showing Trump leading, some showing Trump losing right now. And you've been criticized and lost followers for publishing presidential polls, right, online.
Yes. For months, for almost 2 years, I've been publishing polls, and President Trump has been doing quite well for a long time. I think until maybe 3 or 4 weeks ago, he was leading on in all the major polls. And a lot of people who follow me like them. And it's not just one poll. I publish Fox News poll and CNN polls and CBS polls and, the aggregate of all the polls. And people who followed me really liked it. And now President Trump is not doing very well in the poll. And it's understandable. There's a new candidate on the other side, and she's going to be doing very well in the poll until after their convention next week. And then in September, the poll may change. And one of the things I tell the people who follow me is polls go up, they go down, they go up, they go down. And so you can't unfollow me because the current polls are showing that President Trump is not doing very well, because you don't really know what will happen in 2 weeks, in 3 weeks, in 3 months. The election is in 3 months. And no one really knows what will happen between now and 3 months. The market may collapse or anything. Or the vice president may sit for interview and they realize that she doesn't actually have enough upstairs. And so...
yes. That's
I don't know why they haven't noticed yet, but they haven't been paying attention.
I think she's vacant upstairs.
She's not done. She's not done any serious interview. She's not been confronted. She's not been on any serious thing. And so, and she's going to be doing well now until after the convention. And after the convention, she may not do as well as she's doing now. But I've lost thousands of followers for just publishing
the polls. And you're not manipulating the polls, and you're not picking and choosing which polls you publish. You're simply reporting what the polls say. Do you think, Simon, that the polls are trustworthy. I mean, obviously, you haven't done a deep dive into the demographics, who is being sampled, who actually is being polled, whether they're oversampling Democrats or whatever. You're not commenting on that. You're just simply reporting the polling results.
Yeah, and some of them, some of the polls for me, if I have, like maybe I see a CNN poll, I'm a bit skeptical. I'm like, okay, CNN, you don't have a lot of people on the right who watch CNN. And then I go to a Fox News poll and try to see if they're telling the same story. And their polls, they're being done by conservative groups. And I go to those polls and I realize that those polls are telling a similar story. So even though I'm not the one conducting the poll, I know that the polls are not 100% reliable. They're just samples. Usually they have 1,000 or 2,000 people. And so they don't really reflect, they just give you an idea of where the people stand. And that's why the polls always go up and they go down and they go up and they go down. And I believe that the polls are not 100% accurate, but I don't believe that Fox News is manipulating their polls against President Trump, or the Wall Street Journal is manipulating their polls against President Trump. But I believe that there's just a small shift of energy because there's a new candidate. The Democrat had very bad news for almost a year now with Biden. He couldn't climb the stair, he couldn't debate, he couldn't do anything. And every day it was bad news for the president. And now they are having this new person who is there, so they're excited. Yeah. And it's going to last.
And I think that's understandable, Simon. They could have rolled a rock out there and probably would have gotten a bump in the polls compared to what we've been seeing with President Biden. So I think it is understandable that they would get a little bit of energy from this, but I think time will tell whether that holds. You're exactly right.
Yeah. And Simon, I know the news cycle, just switching gears a little bit, the news cycle has been insane lately. I know you've been trying to take a vacation and you have been so far unsuccessful in that because the news cycle's so crazy. One thing that's seems to be trying to get buried by the nonstop news of new and crazier things happening every day is the Trump assassination attempt. Do you think that, I mean, maybe that's on purpose, or do you think the American public has moved on from what you're seeing online?
Yes, I think so. And they were, especially the MSM, the mainstream media, they couldn't wait to move on because first of all, they tried to dismiss it. The FBI tried to dismiss it. They claimed that he wasn't shot when he was clearly shot, and everyone saw that he was shot. They didn't like it. And now they realized that he was actually shot. They won't move past it. And I think that they move past it, and it's on purpose. They move past it because they don't want they don't want that sympathy. They've told people that this man should be hated. He's a bad person. He's Hitler. He's going to destroy the country. All of them lies, because we know that because he was president for 4 years and he didn't do any of those things. And so now they don't want him to earn some sympathy from people who may change their mind and say, why do we hate this person so much? What did he actually do to us? He didn't start a new war. He didn't kill people. Like, there are people who send people to wars based on false information, and thousands of American soldiers went to die in those wars. And President Trump didn't do that. And they want to paint him here in Washington, D.C. I don't have a lot of friends here in Washington, D.C. because people don't even invite me to stuff, because they believe that how can you support this man? He's racist, he hates black people, and I'm like, no, you need to be fair to people. And that's why I get upset with people online when I'm saying, hey, let's listen to what Kamala Harris has to say in her first rally with the running mate, because we don't know who will win. President Trump may come back, may return to power, or Harris may become the president. So you need to be fair to people. So in DC, there's no tolerance. They are not fair to me. They don't want to invite me. They've told them the same story. President Trump is a bad person. And so they believe it. So when he's shot, some people were even excited that, maybe they should have killed him. You've seen videos on TV, people say that, why did he miss? It's really, really
It is
crazy.
So
crazy.
horrible.
Do you think President Trump would have kicked you out of the press briefing room?
No, I don't think so. President Trump has this relationship with journalists. He likes them, he attacks them.
But he doesn't kick them out.
He doesn't kick them out, and then he comes to the briefing room. He loves the media. He attacks them. He recognizes them. So a lot of media houses got rich because of President Trump, because he's the news. He knows how to drive the news cycle. When President Biden came in, there's no news. Like, people are wondering, CNN began to die. CNN Plus died. They started this trend. They couldn't survive because President Trump wasn't there. And
Yeah, that's right. It's so ironic. It's so ironic that President Trump, who he calls CNN fake news, actually drove their ratings up.
Yeah, exactly. The New York Times got the highest subscription base when President Trump was in power. The Washington Post, the same thing. When President Trump left, and people are like, okay, the enemy is gone. They've created this fake enemy.
That's so interesting.
The worst guy, he's the face of everything, evil and racism and all the bad things in the country. He's the face of those things. All of them falls. All of them falls. And, it's unfortunate what's going on. So.
Crazy, but true. Crazy, but true. So in your view, Simon, how is America seen by African nations under the Biden administration?
A bit weak. A bit weak. President Trump has you need to admit, he's a showman. I'm not sure he will do 100% of all the things that he promises that he will do, but he's an entertaining person. He can send the message that we respond if you attack us. He sends the message that we defend our friends, we defend our allies. He does things that President Biden can't do. When people see the president can't climb the stairs and can't fall down, and Afghanistan, and people lose respect. But the US is still the most powerful country in the world, and so I love the US. You go to other places and you realize that you don't have the freedom, you don't have the conversation that we are having here about the First Amendment. People don't even have the First Amendment in most countries. They don't have the liberties and the freedom that we enjoy in the US. They don't have the resources that we have in the US. And so the US is still the most powerful country in the world. But, I think that it looks a bit weak now.
Yeah. I was still traveling through Africa during Trump's administration, and I will say that a lot of my conversations with government leaders and with, just average, people that I would come across, people like Trump. I mean, a lot of, they just thought they thought he was funny. They could see the humor in what he was saying. Whereas I think it's lost on many Americans how hysterically funny a lot of what Trump says is. And they appreciated his strength because they understand what happens to a country when there's a weak leader, because many Africans have lived through weak leaders that have caused their countries lots of problems. So I just find that so fascinating. And I was really encouraged by that at the time, although I wasn't really a big Trump supporter during his for most of his administration, admittedly. But to see just how embarrassing our nation is under Biden on the world stage is really, I don't know. It's shameful and it's hard to take as an American.
Yes, so President Trump is very funny. When you go to his rallies, all the jokes. I actually believe that he could have done many things with his life. He could have been a stand-up comedian. He could have done so many things. So it's really funny. I invited a friend to one of his rallies in DC. His speech, it wasn't a rally, his speech. and they really liked him. They really liked him. I don't agree with some of the names they uses on social media. I believe that he doesn't need some of those things. He's the former president. He doesn't need to fight people who are below. Like, but he's maybe that's what makes him great. Also,
Well,
Some of
the
those
way
names are pretty funny.
yeah. So he's someone that people will write about in the next 50 years, 100 years, many years from now.
well, I think that one of the things that the primary thing that people find attractive about Donald Trump, I mean, we've been talking here earlier in the show of things being scripted, things being staged, there being a certain narrative that they're pushing. And if you deviate from that narrative, then you're ostracized and alienated. One thing that I think Trump has and really is why he's such a magnet to so many people is that he's so authentic. You have no doubt in your mind when you're listening to Trump or observing Trump that he is exactly who he says he is. He's not afraid of the truth. He's not afraid to pursue the truth. He's not afraid of confrontation. And I think the American people are hungering for that type of authenticity in a society and in a culture that seems so scripted, Simon.
Yes, everything is fake. President Trump, you can see that he's the one who posts on Truth Social or on X when he was still using Twitter. You you can see that he's being who he is. You know when he posts stuff, but when you see President Biden or President Obama post stuff, you don't really know if he's the one who posted it.
Pretty sure he's not. Pretty sure he's not. You saw that post from a couple weeks ago. I'm sick. I'm like, who posts that? No one posts that. Certainly not the president.
Yeah. So President Trump, that's his charm, being who he is, and some of those things earned him a lot of criticism. If he says an explosive thing, and the White House has to clean the WhatsApp once he said something very explosive, and they have to clean the whole thing after him. But at least people know that is what he's thinking at this time. These are his thoughts. People in DC, you don't really know what their thoughts are. The lobbyists, the public relation firms, the press corps, like all kinds of people it's a shame. It's a shame. And so President Trump is unscripted. He says things the way he sees them. He says the truth about everybody. He doesn't care. And so that's what makes him charming.
Yeah. And, in DC, I think people are kind of paid to be able to change their view, right? Not directly, but it pays to be flexible in your mindset in DC.
To say the least.
Yeah.
And to put it quite euphemistically, Danielle.
Yeah. And Simon, one last question from your perspective as a Cameroonian, as someone who covers the Africa and DC beat. In your view, has the Biden administration done anything to meaningfully advance U.S. African relations, U.S. relations with any African nation?
So they tried. They had the U.S. Africa Leaders Summit in 2022, in December 2022. The last time that took place was when President Obama was in power. But they've not been very successful. And you know that when they needed vote during the war in Ukraine, between Russia and Ukraine, and the U.S. needed African votes, and they suddenly realized that they didn't have the vote because China is expanding their investment in Africa, building roads, building bridges. And the US is talking about climate change and LGBTQ and all those stuff that people don't really care about. People want food, people want road, people want pure water. And that's what the Chinese are bringing, and they're exploiting the continent. And the US was actually retreating from Africa. So even though they're having all those meetings in Washington, D.C., in the end, it has to do with business. And the U.S. is not doing a lot of business to improve people's lives. The Chinese and the Russian, they are taking over Africa.
Yeah, I can attest to that. Well, Simon, thank you so much for your time today. We really appreciate getting the opportunity to talk to you. It's been a lot of fun. Obviously, people can follow you on X. Where else can people read about your work?
So usually you just follow me on X at Simon Ateba, SIMONATEBA, or LinkedIn, just look for Simon Ateba or go to todaynewsafrica.com.
Well, thank you, Simon, once again for joining us. Keep seeking the truth. We look forward to continuing to follow you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Chris. Thank you, Danielle.
Best wishes with your appeal.
Yes, thanks. In 2-3 weeks. Yes, thank you.
Awesome. God bless you. Thanks for listening to The State of Freedom. To stay on top of all the calls to action or find resources we mentioned today, check out the show notes for the episode. The scripture reading and reflection for today's episode are on our website, freedomstate.us. If you'd like to support the show financially, you can do that on our website as well. Again, that's freedomstate.us. If you'd prefer to give by mail, you can send a check to The State of Freedom at P.O. Box 861, Berg, Louisiana 70343. If you own a business and would like to support our show by advertising, please email us at info@freedomstate.us. To get involved with Louisiana Citizen Advocacy Group, visit LACAG.org, LACAG.org, or email Chris at chris@lacag.org. If you're enjoying the show, please subscribe and share it and give us a 5-star rating in the reviews. Thanks again, everybody. We'll see you next time.